We're here with the Cube for a Cause second place finalist, Matt. You're in the middle. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to represent Cube NYC.
Hell yeah. So we were at Upkeep. Upkeep plays every Wednesday in Industry City. They host two times yearly Cube for a Cause. What is the cause? I'll
The
cut that.
cause was Glitz. It's
Yeah,
a
glitz.
Black trans led advocacy group for marginalized people in and out of the New York City area.
Yeah. So they had a bunch of cube options. We had 3 rounds and then cut into a top eight. So we're gonna go over Matt's decks and then the top eight deck. This is the first cube you drafted. It was the color shifted cube. You went 3-0. It's so easy. It's trivial. What was the cube about?
So the cube tries to lean on the fringe aspects of each color, what they can do. So for example, white had a reanimator strategy. It also had a spells matter aggro. Red is the main control color in the cube. They tried to design it so most of the 3 mana red removal spells would deal 5 damage and kill most threats on the board. Um, the other color I drafted was blue. That is the quote unquote ramp theme, where
I
you
like
have
Sea Scryer over there.
you have a lot of 2 mana colorless mana dorks. Um, the mana ramp that gets you more mana will typically only give you mana to spend on artifacts. So that's why I'm playing Treefold Thunderhulk.
Yeah, Grand
And
Architect is a good piece
yeah,
between the blue creatures and the artifact creatures. I like that.
yeah. Blue also had a tokens matter strategy. So Grand Architect, as we just mentioned, was pretty big bridge between there. Um, my most important cards, I'd say, were Mightstone Weakstone, which always good removal card draw. Artificer class overperformed the the last level of that class. It gives you a token copy of an artifact on your end step. So if I had Mightstone Weakstone or Duplicate, I was getting 1 free removal at the end of every turn, which let me grind out games extremely well. Um, Other good cards were Bruniclad. Um, I was able to close out a game. I had the dragon token from the Elder Dragon War, and I copied it with Bruniclad when I had like 10 other tokens on the field, so I got to swing
Nice.
for like 40 damage.
Yeah, that's a lot of tokens.
Sicarian Infiltrator, also a big ramp payoff. Um, just
I
lets
was
you,
happy with that card in the artifact cube as well.
yeah,
Like
that
eliminating
card
War Drifter.
is kind of insane. I would often casting it for like 7 or 9 mana, drawing 3 to 4 cards
Hmm.
on before I drew on my turn. Um,
Looks like a pretty strong blue-red deck. You got big mana, you got a bunch of ramp, you got removal. It seems strong. I'm
yeah,
not
well, it
surprised that
was
you went
strong.
3-0. We're gonna look at your picks. You first picked Fabled Passage.
Yes, I first picked Fabled Passage. I
I
wanted
think it's
to.
funny, but it's safe.
I
It goes in every deck.
Yeah, it goes in every deck. It's not quite Prismatic Vista, but I just want to stay open. I second picked the Goldmane Hydra that I really want to play, but didn't really get the chance to splash since the rest of my cards in red and blue were, good enough to play. Um, Wayfarer's Bauble, same idea. Just trying to stay open.
Keep it open. Yeah.
And its ramp, that is, you can play in any color. Signet is like the first sign I want to go into blue. It's a pretty strong card. It's like 4 mana 2/2. When it enters or dies, it makes a 1/1 jellyfish with flying, and it gives all your flying creatures +1/+1. So it's an anthem for flyers. That turned out to be pretty good with all the Thopter tokens I could make with Thopter Spy Network and Sharding Sphinx and all of that. Um, so at that point, I take Steam Vents next, and I'm pretty committed into the blue red strategy. So most of my picks throughout the rest of the draft just kind of reflect that.
Well, you seem to be in the right lane here. You're getting a Sulfur Balls late. You're getting a playable Inspired Tinkering last pick. In the other packs, it also looks like you're wheeling cards that are still in your colors and good.
Yeah, my
I really
first round
like Gilded
opponent.
Lotus. I love Gilded Lotus.
Yeah,
Seeing it go so
Gildos is
late,
great.
disrespectful.
I'm surprised I went that late. But my first round opponent was actually the other person at the table drafting these colors. They were playing Jeskai with more of a token space theme. So I think the one game I lost to them, they had the white Gandalf in play, which gives all your creatures +1/+1 until end of turn every time you play a spell. I was at like 15. I thought I was safe, and they played like 6 spells with 4 mana and instantly killed me.
That's cool. That's a cool aspect of white we don't always see. The like prowess side.
I think they had like a bauble. They had, I don't remember, some other stuff, but I was surprised they were able to play that much in one turn.
All right, on to the next one.
Yeah, on to the next.
This is the Hoopin cube. In addition to putting little stickers on every single card so they have basketballs, this was the first of the like the wacky cubes that you had played. It starts with a contested game ball um, in the command zone. There was a couple other ones, like there was the Cascade cube and the Loam cube, where they have like an additional effect. You played mostly normal cubes. How did you feel about the contested game ball piece? Because other than that, the cube was like a mostly normal cube, a lower power normal cube.
Right. So, I definitely underestimated how important the contested game ball would be. Um, as you see in my deck, I tried to play some sort of Bant mid range slash control, try to outgrind the opponent. But after my first game, I sided out all my card draw and value spells and just put in a lot of 1 drops that can take the ball early. Um,
Kind of
because
like
the
a
cubes are
monarch mechanic.
yeah, yeah, the cube's a little bit slower. Yeah, a lot of the games are extremely grindy. My last game in this cube went to time. Um, so the game ball was pretty much the monarch mechanic, even though you had to pay 2 mana to activate it. Um, this was definitely the cube that I was the most uncertain in while drafting. Um, I took a lot of ramp, but turns out there weren't. I didn't run into too many ramp payoffs later on. My main beater was Glissa's Retriever. The plain white celebration was okay, but not. I never really had the thought that it was worth the 7 mana every time I was casting it. I usually had to gain life and make like a 1/2/2 and return 2 things from my graveyard to my hand because I was dying a lot of the time.
A little more aggressive of a format than we expected.
Yeah, somehow a little more aggressive and somehow very grindy, where
Yeah,
you
both.
definitely need to keep a good board presence
Kind of a
too.
pauper vibe. Should we look at your deck
Yeah,
picks?
yeah,
You start with Moonblessed Cleric.
yeah.
That
I
pack must
believe
have been
that pack
kind
was
of
really
weird.
bad, I
Okay,
think.
yeah.
Um, but I figured, you have the game ball, so it's, almost adds it to your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You can take some more card negative cards because you know you're gonna get them back.
right. And I also didn't realize when I was drafting the importance or how much better a few of the cards get that care about having artifacts in play, because you always have easy access to the game ball. So I didn't
Mm.
really draft around that strategy, but I know some people did. But my next picks, Farseek, just ramp. Um, Jiang is a 3 mana planeswalker that also pretty much just ramps you. So I was pretty certain I wanted to go into like a big green strategy. Um, so I took Hanged Executioner, Plague Crafter, both removal spells. Glissa's Retriever, which was my main payoff for ramp. Um, Armadillo Cloak was just an enchantment that I can grab with the Moonblessed Cleric. I did have pretty good options for the cleric. I had the Armadillo Cloak. I had a Cast Out. I had an O-Ring. And the first of Rowan games. So I often had a choice between removal, life gain, or a threat I could build up and value card in the first Rowan games.
All right, so it looked like it paid off. Yeah, it's always good when your tutor can get multiple things for different situations. It's important.
Right. My first game was against Terrence. He drafted um, Esper control pretty much. I just got extremely outgrinded every game. I believe my second opponent was playing Boros aggro. I was able to stabilize pretty much every game with my removal and my O stone,
Yeah,
and
O-Stone blows up the game ball. I didn't realize that early on that the game ball goes back to the command zone and you
yeah,
can blow it up. Because some of these other ones, like it's an uninteractable emblem effect. Like the Loam Cube, there was no graveyard hate. You just have a Loam consistently. Did that affect your picks? There weren't that many disenchants, it looks like.
yeah.
But I
I
guess
never,
spending a card on that, you're already down a card if they've, and it's better to just hit them and get it than it is to
yeah,
try to remove
yeah. I
them.
never really had the goal of trying to blow up the game ball specifically. I don't think it came up in any of the games I played. And in my last game, it went to time. I had a lifelink creature with a protection from creatures enchantment on it, and they also had a lifelink creature, so we were both just hitting each other for 3 or 4 damage at a time and getting back 3 or 4 life, and just trading the ball back and forth. So that one I couldn't quite close out in time, but I think I would have won it if there was no time limit.
Yeah, a couple games going to time this weekend.
Yeah, especially in some of the more complicated cubes.
Hmm. Next one.
Yeah.
This is
So
Idealized Ravnica. You went 2-1.
yeah, so here, I after the first day was where we played the first 2 cubes, I had a pretty legitimate chance at getting top 8. So I was between the Ravnica cube and the Cascade cube. I wanted to play it a little safer and draft something I know. Um, so I ended up playing some version of Demir, mid-range control. Um,
Looks like you have a nice mill side plan as well, with the glimpse and with the wall, the thief.
yeah, you'll see in my draft pick order, but I was getting torn between Demir and Orzhov. I started drafting blue black, and then a lot of the extort creatures and payoffs started coming back to me, so I started going in that direction. Then the well dried up there, so I started going back to blue black. But so I think my deck was good. It could have been better if I was more focused on what I was picking, but I'm pretty happy with how the deck turned out. I have Dark Confidant. I have 2 sweepers in the Massacre
Ritual
Girl
of
and the
Soot.
Ritual Suit,
Yeah.
which both were pretty good.
Because
And
there's probably
then
a Boros aggro deck running around in Ravnica.
yeah, there's a lot of Boros. I think there were 2 players on Selesnya tokens,
Hmm.
so was pretty good. I did do a good amount of work with my cheap flyers, and might not be in this picture, but I cited in the Curiosity enchantment that instead of drawing your card, it makes a clue token every time the enchanted creature hits your opponent. So I'll put down a Judge's Familiar or Night Veil Sprite. That would help my grind game as well.
Really cool
And
picks.
yeah,
Yeah, the card you were talking about is Curious Inquiry
yeah, not
at
quite as good as
2 pick
Curiosity,
15.
but it got the job done.
I
So
see
yeah,
it. Yeah, Massacre Girl,
yeah,
Karlov. Chemistry Insight, no more lies. Going back and forth between.
yeah. I kept going back and forth. So I took a glimpse early. There was a Bond of Insight that I could have picked pack 1, which both players mill 4, and you can return 2 instant sorceries to your
That would
hand.
have been really good
So that would have
with
been
the
really good with
glimpse.
the glimpse, but I unfortunately did not get to take it. Um,
Did you mill anyone out? Or are you mostly winning with tempo?
um, my first round, I was playing against Gruul, Blood Rush slash aggro. They were more focused on pumping creatures with a lot of burn spells. So that one I just won off of my Ritual Suit and Massacre Girl, just cleared a board, win that way. My second opponent was playing Azorius Control, so I sided in all of my mill spells, such as the Drowned Secrets or Drowned Answers, and the Glimpse, and it did come to a point where I cast Glimpse when they had about 11 cards in deck, and they were forced to counter it. So I'd say it did its job there. Um, and my last opponent was playing Boros Aggro. Went to game 3. I they had the new Phoenix that when it dies, you can investigate for, I believe, or collect evidence for, and it will come back. And I didn't really have a clean answer to that. I think my only answer was the dramatic accusation, which would tap it down and keep it tapped. So I think on my top decks, I drew like 2 flyers to chump block it, and third draw didn't draw anything, so I just died to it. But very close games for that round 3.
You knew you were kind of close to top eight going into the Sunday. You
Yep,
were, yeah. So when you went 2-1 and you made, I think, sixth or seventh, something like that.
I was 6th, I believe.
Yeah, it was like kind of close with the breakers, but you were good. I thought this last deck was just like very clean, very like you had Massacre Girl, Remand, Dark Confidant as your picks. Like you're just playing like blue black control, and you'll see if we go into the next one. I feel like your deck also was very like very clean decks, very mid range, very control decks. They give you a lot of options. I think that's what we saw of your decks. You have a lot of options in your decks.
Yeah, it's a lot of kind of hard to see in this picture because the whole cube was foil, so a lot of light reflecting off of the image. But here, I drafted Grixis control pretty much splash green for a few cards. I don't have my pick order, but I believe my first picks were a fetch land into force negation, and then I grabbed both 3 mana lilies pretty early on, so pretty much settled in this lane. As you can see off the lands, there's an abundance of fixing in this cube.
Yeah, everyone
So
was sort of playing a lot of colors. Like
yeah,
the final
everyone
matchup was 4 color versus 5 color lures, right?
yeah, so everyone pretty much were playing at least 3 colors. Um, and I did have a decent amount of experience playing Legacy Cube on MTGO to draw off of. So my main strategy drafting here was to take a lot of fixing, um, a lot of interaction, such as I have Murderous Cut, I have Mana Leak, I have Fatal Push, cheap interactions so you don't die early, and then near the end of the draft you can take whatever planeswalkers or value engines are left. You should be able to play them because you have a lot of fixing, no matter their colors, and they will eventually be able to grind you to a victory. Um, two
Lilia
cards,
can win you games on its own. Like cards like
yeah.
that can sometimes just win you a
Lilio,
game. Slam
Lily,
Lilia, force
Lily
negation to your
ult,
play.
yeah.
Yeah.
Lily the Last Hope ult, Chandra ult. So a lot of these cards can just, once you get into a simplified game state, everyone's top decking. If you have one of those cards out, you have a pretty good chance of winning the game. My green splash was for Ignoble Hierarch and Mosswood Dread Knight. Eventually, I sided out the Ignoble Hierarch, and I think it was the Impulse, and I put in um, Scavenging Ooze and Deep-Root Wayfinder,
Hmm.
which both put in their own work. Scavenging Ooze is pretty good because there's decent amount of incidental graveyard synergies in this cube, and the Deep-Root Wayfinder with all the fetch lands, pretty much just rammed you every turn and hit. So you can get a pretty good mana advantage there. Um, and I did get to connect with this Diza, the Restless card, I think twice.
With
When it
Goyfs into play?
when you hit your opponent with a creature, you put a Tarmogoyf token into play,
It's a very funny card.
which is pretty funny. It's a pretty good tempo swing. You drop it on turn 5, you have a 5/6, you hit them, you get a Tarmogoyf that's probably around also a 5/6. Pretty good stat swing there. My first round opponent was playing Sultai control pretty much. They were just taking all the cards that I wasn't able to pick up. I think they had the same draft strategy as me, where we started in blue black, and we saw that it was kind of contested by most of the table, and there are a lot of green cards and fixing going around. So I think we both pivoted to taking the good green cards. I think he had Grist in his deck was the main good one. Don't remember what else he had, but he had Him to Torak and the Torak creature, uh, as well as all the other good Black Planeswalkers. So I was able to outgrind him with both of the lilies, even though he played him to Torak, I believe, every game on turn 2 against me. My second round opponent was playing some 4-color pile, just 4-color good stuff, which is pretty strong in this cube. That was the game where I got to use Disa. I think also the Urborg Scavengers was pretty good. They had a flyer in their graveyard. So what I did is I would play Urborg Scavengers, I would exile my Lilia in my graveyard to give it haste, and then I would
Mm.
attack with it, and then exile their flyer, so I would have um, a hasty flyer threat. Close that game pretty fast. Um, and then my last opponent was playing 5-color Lures, which is, I would say, a tough matchup for this deck. A lot of my removal is 1-for-1. There was a Toxic Deluge that was pretty early in pack 1, but I didn't take it because I wasn't sure where I wanted to commit. I think that was the main sweeper in the cube. So that one also went to game 3. Pretty much a top deck war, but they drew into Smuggler's Copter and Territorial Kavu when they had 5 domain. So they had a 5/5 that I couldn't really answer at the end of the game. I did have the Teamer colored Sarkin that I could have sided in that I think would have been better in the long run. The plus draws you a card and gives you 1 mana of any color, and the minus gives you a 4/4 dragon token. So it might have been better in a long game where I can have bigger tokens that can contest, Smuggler's Copter in the air and just
To go over the
try and,
top, maybe.
yeah, close out the game a little faster. But I mean, I was pretty happy with this draft. Deck is powerful. Um, Almost won the whole thing, but
Second place
very
is
close
is
game
not
3.
too shabby. Yeah,
Yeah, second
second of
place is not bad.
64 is awesome. We were very proud of you. We were all cheering for you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I'm definitely, it's a great event. I'm definitely gonna be back for the next one around in August, and hopefully I can perform there as well. But yeah, I had a lot of fun this weekend.
Thanks for chatting with us. I'm sure you're gonna make top 8 again at the next one. Bye bye.
Bye bye.